Where are the low value men? Like, what are all the low value men up to during these trying times? Because the high value men, I know they're around. They won't shut the fuck up. Low value men, I have not heard a word out of. I'm starting to think I'm on their side. I think I want one of those. I want a low value man. They don't make podcasts. I haven't seen one low value man make a podcast. Do they not know how to use microphones? Maybe that's a good thing. That's hot. All right, I've never seen a man use a microphone for good.
Until now, everybody buckle up. It's low value mail time with your host, Danny Polishchuk. Welcome back, everybody. Very exciting show that we have tonight. It's episode number 97, man. Coming up on a big old hundo of low value mail on this February 27th, 2024, in the year of our Lord. And joining us today, we have Charlie Robinson from the Macroagressions podcast. He's also the author of The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire and The Octopus of Global Control. And he'll be joining us very shortly. Before anything, please like and subscribe to this stream if you're watching it on YouTube or on Rumble, or if you're listening to it. Just do one of the things that every podcast invariably asks you to do. Our guest who was supposed to be on tonight, shout out to Charlie for stepping up last minute here. Lou Ferrante, my fault, by the way, everybody. He didn't, it was actually, there was some miscommunication, and I guess I had not confirmed that he was going to be on tonight. So he'll be on, I think, in 2 weeks from now. So do not worry. People in the chat saying he was whacked. This, did not happen. He was not whacked. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so. Patreon.com/lowvaluemail. Or you can join the channel. That also helps. As you can tell with my little scheduling snafu, I could use a producer. I could really use a producer. And you could help me do that and also make the show longer. I think it's a win-win, but it's up to you. Also, a few little housekeeping notes. After much decision and consternation, I was going back and forth with keeping the live streams up, taking them down. They will be staying up. It turns out that it didn't really make much of a difference for whatever reason, so I'll just leave them up because a bunch of people were complaining. And last thing I want to do is deal with your goddamn complaints. Next week, we have on the show Harry Cooper from Shark Hunters International, who I mentioned. I also did message him, but what do you care about that? Obviously, I had to have messaged him in order to book him. He's an he's I don't know what he's basically the guy who investigated Hitler and has evidence that Hitler did not kill himself in the bunker, but in fact died of old age in South America. I think that's what the prognosis is. So anyways, that's good. I'm pretty pumped about that. We're back with an all-new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. live from the Stand Comedy Club Green Room. We have Nate Marshall, Andy Malfarina, one open slot at the moment, who we'll see who fills that bad boy. And I know Slav, Legion of Skanks, is on right now with Shane Gillis. He's some guy or whatever. I can't do anything about that, all right? I cannot do anything about that. Thankfully, it's behind a paywall, so I don't know how many of you guys have Gas Digital memberships, but I love Gas Digital, so if you want to go watch that, go ahead. It's not going anywhere, though, I'll tell you that much. So you can go chat with the fucking Cluck with the Hens that you saw live? This is actually live. That's a pre-tape. And I have some comedy shows coming up this weekend. I'm going to be in Phoenix/Scottsdale, Arizona at the House of Comedy. Derek Drescher is going to be joining me, headlining there. I'm going to be in Saratoga Springs, Fairfield, Connecticut, Dallas, Minneapolis, and Hamilton, Ontario, actually. I just added that like an hour ago. Hamilton, Ontario, April 19th and 20th. And also Edmonton and Vancouver. Okay, one thing before I get started, before we bring our guest on. Okay, so I'm gonna just I'm not necessarily leaving it up to you, but I'm just gonna I'd like to take a poll, which I will put a poll up. So some of you watch The Bathhouse. Some of you maybe don't ever watch The Bathhouse. It's a very funny, fun comedy show, live call-in show that I do on Wednesday nights. I can't start that show until late because we record the Boys Cast all day, and just the way it works out is it can't really start until the 10:30 p.m. time. I'd like to make the show longer. The only way I can do that, unfortunately, is by moving it to Tuesdays at 9 p.m. to make it like a 2-hour show, and then moving this show, Low Value Mail, my sweet, sweet baby, to Mondays. So I'm just going to put a simple poll up. It's going to be a yes or no. You let me know what you think. The downsides are that this show is now on Mondays, but then you don't have to go up against Legion of Skanks. The upside is more Bathhouse. So I'm going to put that poll up shortly. But in the meantime, let us bring on our guest. Hold on. Let's do this. 1, 2, and Charlie, are you there? Nope. Yep. Charlie, you there?
I'm here.
Charlie,
Yes.
Welcome. Hold on. I got to change I'm so bad at this, man. You think after fucking 97 episodes. All right.
You do need a producer.
Oh, man. It's just so much. It's just so much rattling around. Charlie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much. I'm very excited for this. I've spent the last couple hours listening to some of your podcasts.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No. You're not Canadian, are you?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Denver.
You're in Denver. Okay, very nice. I'm actually going to be, I don't think it's open to the public. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm going to be, I don't know how I landed this, but I will be moderating the libertarian presidential debate in Colorado, outside of Denver, in Colorado Springs. I don't know if I think it's open to the public. Anyways, I'll be there March, I want to say like 19th or something, March 20th.
We're going to have to heckle you.
Yeah, come out. I'm not doing comedy, though. That's the thing. They're like, do you want to moderate this? And I was like, okay.
Well, that's what you say.
Yeah. I mean, hey, I think with the way we figured it out is I'm going to kind of be the straight man on this thing, too. Or, I'm going to be the straight man, I think. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never moderated anything.
They need it. They need somebody to mess with them, though.
Yeah.
Feel free to.
But it should be fun. I don't know if it's like in a barn or something. I assume it'll be in a frozen.
Oh, it should be. Yeah, that'd be fitting.
On brand for I've seen some libertarian stuff. It's usually in the barn. But anyways, so thank you for joining me. I'm pretty excited for this. So you are a podcaster. You host the Macroagressions podcast.
Yep.
And you're also an author of your most recent book, The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, which is what I'd like to talk to you about, because you seem to have not only strong opinions, but actually you seem to have it backed up with receipts, as the kids say. You don't seem too pumped about this.
Well, I mean, I've never wanted to be wrong about something so much in my life. You know what I mean? When you get objective and you take a look at the state of the world in general and America in particular, I mean, it's hard to deny that there are some massive problems. And then you start to take a little deeper look, because it feels a little so obvious that almost, is it made to happen? Am I supposed, are you? You can't be this incompetent accidentally. This has to be sort of intentional, right?
Sure.
And so if it's intentional, then what are the ramifications of that? And I wound up talking to Jeff Berwick. He runs a show called, he has a company called the Dollar Vigilante and the Crypto Vigilante. And these are just like financial services newsletter companies. And he does some pretty popular walk and talk videos where, and I went on to promote my first book, The Octopus of Global Control, back in 2018. And he said, when we got done recording, he said, you want to write a book together? And I was like, I mean, maybe, yeah. What do you have in mind? And he said, he made a comment and he said, it's all coming down. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, like the financial system, it's a house of cards. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. So in my mind, I'm thinking coming down like a controlled demolition. And so he said, I've got an idea for it. And he sent it over to me. And I thought about it for a while, and I couldn't get it out of my head what he was talking about when he was saying it's all coming down. And so I said, what if we did this? What if we made it like the way you would take down an actual building? I lived in Vegas for 10 years, the way you take down a casino, right? And the very meticulous way of doing that. And we sort of overlaid that and made it a metaphor for how you would take down the American empire. Much like how the Soviet Union went away, but Mother Russia remained,
Sure.
sort of talked about the case for the American empire falling away, but the United States remaining in some fashion. So we talked about chapters like rotting foundation, pre-weakening of the building, identifying the support columns, rigging the detonators, asking who wired the building, ringing the alarm bells, pushing down the plunger, and clearing the debris, and sort of made these connections about how you would pre-weaken the building of a high rise by going and finding these really small joints and cutting them in advance so that you would use less explosives. And kind of made the same comparison of how you would gut America by things like NAFTA, like Clinton signed in the 90s, which was like lighting a 30-year fuse on the American economy, just completely gutted it, outsourced everything to China and Mexico and wherever. And so you start to kind of make the case that that this stuff isn't accidental, it's intentional, and that if you're going to have this dream, this fantasy that these lunatics have of a world government, and they do, it's not my speculation, they talk about it openly, but if you're going to do this, you can't have superpowers in your way. And so the Soviet Union fell in 91, and the American empire has been slated for destruction. And they're hollowing us out culturally. I mean, you guys do, you guys are already, you're all over this in your realm of comedy, where you see the just preposterousness of it all. It's so obvious. You can't help but notice it. And you feel like you're being culturally gutted while being financially gutted.
Right.
And then you see these bullshit wars that are going on, and you go, I mean, at some point it's got to go our way, right? If it was just random luck of the draw, it's got to go our, and yet it doesn't every single time. You see the southern border, you go, you left the southern flank, but you molest people that fly in from Tokyo and make them go through full screenings, but yet what are we doing here? And so when you recognize it, then you start to go, shit, like, is this part of the humiliation ritual? Like, am I supposed to see this? Is this part of the thrill for them, is to get off watching us figure it out? Like,
or maybe it's just them it's just being done in such plain sight that you're just kind of thinking this is just how it's going to be, huh?
It's hidden by your own incredulity, that you just can't believe that something like this would be right out in the open. And yet you watch guys like Donald Rumsfeld come up and, like, with a straight face, talk about how $2.3 trillion can't be accounted for, and then mistakes were made, and we're charting a course forward. And you're like, what? What do you... we got all day. I got all day to go find the $2.3 trillion. Let's talk about that. Oh, you can't, because they covered that up. So it's just you recognize these things, and you put enough pieces together, and it starts to kind of paint a picture. And that's what Berwick and I put together with Controlled Demolition. We didn't mean for it to be an instruction manual. We didn't need to tell these people how to do it. We were just kind of witnessing what they were doing and how they were going about it, and laying it out in a format that seemed kind of logical. And I think people connected with it. And like I said, I don't want it to be true. I live here. I want what's best for all of us. But it's undeniable we have a problem. And then it's like, like the Alcoholics Anonymous, right? Like, the first step is recognizing you have a problem. We're living in a country where everyone is in complete denial about where we are. And I think that's really dangerous.
So question one, and this is a question we ask quite a bit on the show. Who is they?
Yeah.
And why?
Well, it's they. They is, well, you can make a case that it's multi-generational, international banking families. That's a big group of it. Yeah. I would say if you wanted to find like a brand name group of some really dangerous bad guys, the Committee of 300 would be a good place to look. I'd say that is, it's not limited. If this were a Venn diagram, there'd be a lot of overlapping. United Nations is deeply involved with this. They were started by the Rockefeller family. They have so it's not it's not one homogenous group, but it is a consortium of different families and industries that have a vested interest in centralizing power into their hands, of course, and
Right.
and they'll use whatever sort of nonsensical excuse to do that. There's too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, or there's a virus that's going to kill you, or whatever, or there's terrorists around every corner. Whatever they can do to scare you and put you into this frame of mind where you're looking at more of short-term thinking as opposed to long-term thinking, then they capitalize on that and slowly and incrementally through fear and media manipulation take a little bit more of your rights each time. You almost wind up giving them away because you're so scared. And then the next thing you know, and you just don't get them back. Or if you get them back, you don't get them back at the rate that you gave up your rights at.
Or you don't get them back in the same version
you get them back as privileges,
right?
That can be revoked, or licenses that you need to go renew, or something like this. It's so they operate under the motto of never let a good crisis go to waste, and also in the absence of a crisis, make one.
Yeah,
because they're real convenient. I mean, they don't cost a lot, and you can create them, and there's a strategy to it. And there's a strategy towards recognizing it as well. And the more you kind of see it, and the more you recognize, you go, oh, they're not super creative. When you look at them, they all kind of run the same play. Or it's handoff to the running back almost all the time until you figure it out, and then they're forced to change their play. But it's not real high level thinking.
Sure.
But the general public doesn't think to know to be suspicious about a lot of this stuff until you get these big events like JFK or 9/11 or COVID. And then all of a sudden people start going, whoa, something's not adding up. And then they start asking questions. So that's kind of where we are now.
And is there anything that can be done to counteract it? Because sometimes I feel like, there's this element of just throwing your arms up and saying, even if you would it take every person in the country knowing that it's going on to even change that?
No. And in fact, I guess
should I light myself on fire? It's on the table.
Not yet.
Okay.
Save that. That's your ace in the hole.
Okay.
That's the I'm not going to jail final move. But I think that the statistics show that you don't need 51% of the general public to figure something out. You need something like 12%, some very, very small number. I don't know. Some statistician came up with it. I read it somewhere. Maybe it's not even true. But the point is that you don't need as many people as you think you need. You need like the early adopters. You need the people that are really frustrated and saw this stuff a while ago. And now, we sort of have this opportunity. In the alternative media, where you've got a lot of people that used to like the mainstream and used to connect with that, and didn't know that Rachel Maddow was lying to her audience on an industrial scale. Like never even occurred to them, but now they're starting to figure that out. They still want information.
That would arguably have been their biggest weapon, was the trust in just media.
Yeah. The conditioning of just conditioning is that turn on the TV. These are some channels. The studios look nice. They spend a lot of money. It must be important. If they spend a lot of money, they make a lot of money. It must be important. Those are some real assumptions that the general public has been making too. Has been that their media is telling them the truth. And one of the things that I'll point out to people is that they talked about like how Obama never had a bad. Never had a scandal, or he wore a tan suit one time, and that was a big deal. But he passed something called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012, which nobody even thinks of really, because the original Smith-Mundt Act was back right after World War II. It said, we can't use propaganda in America on Americans. It's a bad idea. We saw what the Germans did. We're not doing that. We can still use it on other people, but we're just not going to use it on ourselves. Everyone said, that's a good idea. Let's not do it. Obama came in and said, remember how we weren't going to use propaganda on our own people? Well, I've decided to change that. I've decided to make it so that we can use propaganda on our own people. We're just going to call it, it's just going to be information sausage with like lies in there. And then good luck to you figuring out what the truth is and where the lies are. And that's been in place since 2013 when it got passed in the National Defense Authorization Act. And it only got passed because he crammed it in with a bunch of other stuff. It's deeply unpopular, but it legalized lying by our media.
And when you say legalized lying, yeah, when you say legalized lying, it just prevents them from being sued for.
Because, of course, right. We would never pretend like lying in the media didn't exist before 2012.
Sure, of course.
But you know, so again, they took the extraordinary step of legalizing it, I would suggest, because they intended to use it. Mm-hmm. Right? Why would you go and change the law to legalize propaganda if you weren't planning on using some propaganda?
And does it explicitly say propaganda? Like, what is the actual wordage?
Yeah. Wording, it's about propaganda. Yeah, you can use it, and they don't have to. In fact, on top of that, you wind up getting the guy who used to be the CEO of Time Magazine on a Council on Foreign Relations panel in front of live human beings and big TV cameras and a microphone and everything, saying, I frankly don't have a problem with propaganda. When I worked in the Obama White House, they used to jokingly call me the chief propagandist. At my time running Time Magazine, I think propaganda has a place, and I think it's necessary, and all regimes use it, and we use it too. He said it in front of the camera, and you're just like, oh my God, like that's supposed to be what the poor Russians dealt with in the 80s. Like, oh, they don't even know. They're just getting lied to, and Pravda, and the poor Russians, they don't even know. No, they knew they were getting lied to. The problem is that we in America, we think we're too smart to get lied to. And for the vast population, the kids in college, you probably can't. I mean, you can't play colleges, can you?
No. The comedy college thing, the way it works now is like way different. Like the people who go play there don't.
It's
like
not
nobody I know really goes and plays colleges. That's like a different thing entirely, I guess now. Where it used to be, like if you were a club comedian in New York City, that was just you also went and played colleges. But the nature of how colleges have gone. I will say though, it seems like people are coming around to this. And I don't know if maybe, they're fine with everybody not trusting the media, because then they've sown so much distrust where then you can believe nothing, and that's almost equally as good to them.
For sure.
Right. So then I guess how do you see this playing out from where we are now?
Yeah, because there's this old KGB agent named Yuri Bezmenov, and he would do these interviews with G. Edward Griffin back in the 70s.
The famous.
They look like they're on their way to Studio 54 afterwards. You know what I mean? And he would talk about this ideological subversion, and how it takes like how you need to have like a 30-year period of it, like the first 15 to 20 years of demoralization, and then 5 years of destruction, and then a 6-week crisis, and then the normalization process after that. And you start watching it, and you're doing the math. You're like, all right, all the 80s, all the 90s, all the 2000s. Yeah, okay. They've had enough time to run this op on us. And it makes me feel like Yuri was onto something, that they softened us up from the inside culturally. And what he was talking about was you just need enough time really for the demoralization process to get one entire generation of education all the way through college. Once you get them after college, they're properly broken. And at that point, then you lean on them a little bit harder for 5 years, and then you introduce a 6-week crisis like COVID or whatever. And then after that, he said that what they would describe it in the Soviet Union is that they would have a problem in Czechoslovakia, and they would roll tanks and put tanks on every corner. And then they would say that the problem was normalized. So he says you achieve to get to a place where the problem is normalized, where nobody talks about the problem anymore. And so that is also part of this place where we are now, is that you've got an entire generation of people that are just normalized to absurdities, like wearing masks. You see the random person wearing a mask, like in their car by themselves, and you're like, holy shit, like you are broken.
Yeah,
inside.
I mean, they've
Like,
just been scared. These are like probably
you feel
somewhat
bad. I
neurotic
almost feel
people.
bad.
Of course.
No,
Yeah.
I don't want everybody to, I don't want people to go through these psychological operations, but they are operations. And when Yuri kind of lays it out in this clinical way. And so I really have connected with that recently, because it feels like if you at least know the play they're running on you, you can try to formulate some sort of defense for it, or maybe get out of the way. I mean, but if you know that there's a crisis moment, and you know that there's a process where they're breaking you, this 5-year process, which is where I think we kind of are right now. I think that it feels like we're in this process where everything is getting kind of turned on its head, where there's a million genders and men can get pregnant, and all the, and 2 + 2 = 5, as long as you can show your work, and all this stuff that is just absurd and was laughable when we were back in school, now is like actually requiring discussions. And if you don't show somebody the proper amount of respect for their dumb idea, then they try to get you thrown off campus or something like that. And
sure. And the people who kind of, I heard this, someone said this recently, which I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, but I just, maybe I never thought of it. Everyone who's essentially in any sort of position of power right now has been through this whole like university system. Like generally you have to have gone through some school to get in any position of power, and you know they were all essentially set up to run you through this gauntlet.
Yeah, it really was, and well, school in general. I mean, it's a sorting mechanism early on, right? You have like the public schools, and or appropriately, I think the government schools is what we should refer to them, and then different schools, the smaller, more private institutions that taught a different education. And when you get these oligarchs talking about, you know, like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, when they're starting this compulsory schooling system, they're very upfront about like, we want one class of people to have one type of education, and then we want a very small class of people to have a different education. And so there's already sort of a sorting mechanism down at the bottom. And then by the time you get to a position of power, you're right, you've gone through that school. You maybe even went to the correct schools too, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, you know, these sort of like a little bit more intertwined with power between Washington, D.C. and Wall Street and places like that. You know, you start to find out that there's these little networks that support each other, and they have a very different way of viewing the world. I mean, you almost can't fault them, because like their entire existence has been very curated and very specific to getting them to be the managerial class. And I mean, Orwell writes about this in Animal Farm and things like that, you know, so it's not something new. It's been going on a long time, but you run across these. That's why you get these twats in the British Parliament. You're like, have you ever interacted with a human being in your life? I mean, you guys seem so fake, and you know, and it's like, no,
sheltered.
they've gone through this rigorous boarding school process. I went to boarding school myself, but it wasn't like that. Where you're groomed to become like a power broker, and it's got to be very weird. And
yeah, I sometimes do think about with all the stuff that's happening in schools right now, and then, you know, I think, yeah, I'd be like the guy who's like, yeah, this is all bullshit, and they're asking you all these questions and about, you know, gender or whatever, and you're like, this is all, but then they're like, well, then you fail though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when kids are in school right now, and maybe I'm sure their parents are telling, you know, they come home and they tell their parents something, and maybe the parents are like, hey, like that's bullshit, but still also you have to pretend like it's not at school because they'll fail you.
Right. You have to be strategic too. You have to teach your kids how to approach a problem like that. You go, all right, well, we have a problem. What they're teaching you is nonsense. So what do? Do we make a big fight about it? Maybe, but or do we do you give them the answer that they want? I don't know. I mean, the part of me that just says you don't you don't give these people an inch.
Right.
You know,
but again, if you're a
stand up to them every chance
say,
you get.
Right, but that's easy to say unless you're in high school and your future hangs in the balance.
And it's easy to say when someone is saying I'm being pressured into taking a medical experiment against my will. It's easy for you to say, well, then just quit. You know, stand up for your principles too. I mean,
yeah.
lot of people had to make some very difficult life decisions based on reality, not just on how they felt like in a perfect world. So it was, it's
And
been
so you think we're coming up on this 6 week crisis is yet to arrive?
I mean, you know, a case can be made that one of those full generations was between 9/11 and COVID. I mean, it kind of fit from a timing standpoint in there pretty nicely with Yuri's assessment. But nothing is necessarily set in stone. It feels like 2024 is a very pivotal year. We've got obviously U.S. elections going on later this year, but worldwide, plenty of other countries are having elections. So there's a lot of turmoil. We've got farmers in Europe that are starting to rise up and say this is nonsense. All these globalist ideas of cutting our carbon emissions like this, you're going to starve us out. We're not interested. So you're starting to feel like the people are pushing back a little bit, and that's a good thing. But these people are very dangerous, and when they get backed into a corner and they think they're losing their power, they're liable to do just about anything. So I'm always a bit nervous.
Sure.
Yeah. But I try not to be like, fearful, and I certainly don't want to like doom and gloom everyone, because I think in the end the best strategy is to just understand what the play is here, what these people are trying to do. And if you understand that, you can plan accordingly and you won't get hurt as bad. But so I don't want people to be like scared about all these things. I just want them to be aware that, like,
I mean, and when you say plan accordingly, do you have anything specific?
Well, yeah. I mean, so back to,
because I often think I have a joke with like this running joke that I have with Ryan Long, where I say I have all these friends back home in Canada, that's where I'm from, and where we're both from, who don't know what's going on at all. They just like, they have their jobs, their families, they don't have social media, and part of me is like, it's a classic like ignorance is bliss. They just like don't know, and they're probably they're like, I don't know, everything's fine. But also, during COVID, they were very much like, this is stupid, but just went along with it. And, I joke, I have my one friend who maybe like he works at a bank, and like maybe 5 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, something like that. But he was like, you heard of this pronoun stuff? Like after I had been making fun of it for 5 years already. And he's like, yeah, it's like, I think I have to put in my email signature. It's kind of the boiling frog, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. Our friends are waking up at different rates. Everybody sort of comes to this information at their own pace. But it's not necessarily to be feared. It's just, I think we just need to get honest about where these people want to take us. And so, you asked for like something practical to do. I would say reevaluate your relationship with your bank. That's a good place to start. It's a pretty practical thing to start. And one of the reasons why I say that, I just mentioned this Smith Modernization Act of 2012, which legalized propaganda. Well, there's also a new piece of legislation that just legalized bail-ins for banks. Not bailouts. Bailouts when the government bails out the bank, gives them money. Bail-in is when the bank takes your money that's in your bank account and they say, it's our money now. Now, it's legal for them to do that anyway, because when you open up your bank account, you become an unsecured creditor and they're in first position. So it's already in your contract. But again, just to make sure they legalize that. And it goes back to that same line of thinking. I just have a bad feeling that they legalized it because they intend to use it at some point. And if they intend to use it at some point, that means they're going to take the money that's in your bank account that you think is your money in your bank account. So when I say reevaluate the relationship you have with your bank, maybe don't have all of your money in the bank, maybe. And again, I'm not licensed to give financial advice. So just, do your own research and all that stuff. But like there's an assumption we make that the banks are rock solid. Everything's good. They're solvent. They're backed up by the FDIC. They're solvent. No, they're invested in bonds that are upside down. The FDIC is most definitely not in a good spot. But even if they were, they're only 2% of the total deposits. That's if they got through the bank, which is in first position, the bondholders, which are in second position, and then your your account, which is in third position, you get 2 cents on the dollar. You are not protected in the bank. So knowing that, you go, oh, okay, well, should I just bury my money in the backyard? Frankly, it's probably better than keeping it in a bank right now, especially like a small to mid-sized bank, the type of banks that will easily go under. And with the federal government going, we can't help them, I would just be very aware.
And they kind of, I mean, they had that, what was it, the Silicon Valley Bank situation that they had, and essentially that's where they had to come to the rescue, I guess. Because I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for some really connected people with Silicon Valley Bank, that bank might have fallen. And I think the government took one look at that and they went, we don't need this sort of headache. But, you know, if the branch manager runs off with all the money out of the vault, you're going to be fine. You know, like everyone, you're going to get your, the FDIC will be there for that. But if you have a systemic banking collapse, good luck. You know what I mean? Like that's a disaster. But then, so again, so when people say like, what should I do? Just think about something like that as a possibility. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but again, it's just logical. If they made it legal, they're probably going to do it.
Yeah.
And if they're going to do it, it's going to be bad for you. And maybe.
And do you see this as like a central bank current, like a central,
that's where I was going to go with it. Exactly. Yeah. Is that I could envision a scenario. This is fake. I'm just making this up, but I could envision a scenario in which something like that did happen where the banks did the bail-in and took your money. And then the government came in and said, we're going to fix this. We're going to find out exactly how much money you had in there before, and we're going to give it to you in the form of a central bank digital currency, this or whatever, or Chase Bank coin or whatever.
Yeah,
create a new coin in the name of the bank that just stole it. And we're going to give you that, and maybe you can use that coin. Yeah, we'll be able to track everything that you do with it, where you spend it. You won't be able to buy guns or ammo or red meat or go to strip clubs or buy weed or anything like that. But, whatever, it's free money. Otherwise, you'd have nothing. This bank would have stolen your money. Thank you, daddy government. So I could envision a scenario in which that is how they roll in a central bank digital currency. They steal all your money legally, put you in a bad situation. You beg for a solution, and they say, well, we got this coin, this new Fed coin or whatever.
Yeah, backed by the, United States government, which is, that's what currency is anyways.
Right,
so
exactly.
They say they're essentially replacing that. Phone lines are open, everybody, if you have anything you want to add to the show. And just like that, we have our first caller of the night. One moment, please. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up? 1 second while we patch you through.
No worries.
And you are on with Charlie Robinson. Go ahead.
Hey, Charlie, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad at all. Here in New England, fucking just started to get a little bit of rain, but no, I was just wondering, like, so the last part, because I don't know, like, exactly your take on like the globalist. It is like a globalist agenda, right? That you're kind of
it's less global government and more global governance. Kind of, if you think of it like a global franchise where everyone's a little different, but they still sort of run it through the main corporate headquarters. And the corporate headquarters, if you wanted to get specific, would be their plan is for the United Nations to run that. And right. So that would be sort of maybe the top there, with then dictating down to the nation states themselves. We've already seen the World Health Organization doing that with regard to health policies, them dictating down to the rest of the states. So that's kind of how they would do it. Not necessarily like every country connected under a world flag or anything like that, but more like just a network of franchisees that are all on this big global reservation. That's how I see it, at least.
Right. Okay. Then no, because that makes sense. It also kind of lines up with like things that I've like kind of watched in the past. But like the way that it's supposed to work or would work, not that, because like you said, like you're not saying that it would have, or it's definitely going to happen, or not. Like it's basically United Nations. If everyone kind of goes with this like one kind of move that they make.
Yeah,
I mean, it's essentially a one world government kind of.
Yeah, they're uniting nations into a world government. That's what.
Now, I guess the problem is how much of it is because there seems to be pretty adversarial between certain large governments where it seems hard to envision them cooperating at that level.
It's not going to be a slam dunk, and these people make a lot of mistakes too, and it's very hard to run the world.
Yeah,
it's a big task, and everybody's got different sort of agendas. They want different things. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I was just saying that sounds extremely difficult to do, to run the whole world.
Think about watching people trying to be the mayor of a city or anything,
I know.
Extrapolate that to multiple armies and different currencies and all that sort of stuff. It seems impossible that you could get that kind of cooperation, but
so the most logical way for them to get that kind of cooperation is really in two different areas that they're going for. The first is health. We've seen that in the World Health Organization trying to position themselves as more of a global authority on health, and then whatever they decide dictates down to the masses. And then the second part is climate, which is total nonsense, baloney. But they hijack all the things that all the emotional ways you feel about pollution, which is very real and a real problem and things that we shouldn't be doing. And they take all that and they say, oh, that's climate change. And it's like, no, that's pollution. That's totally different. So they because they say things like, well, climate change doesn't respect national borders, therefore it's an international problem, and an international problem requires international solutions. Mm-hmm. Therefore, here comes the United Nations to offer their solution for saving it, because it's just a problem that's so much bigger than one country. Clearly, we need them to be in charge. So they've decided that they're the boss of it. So that's kind of how it doesn't come in the form of tanks on the street corners. It comes in the form of
social engineering, like through like a bunch of different kind of institutions to like go down on the public over time. Maybe
you got it exactly right. So you get the laws on the top half that basically start to dictate it, and then you brainwash the people at the bottom to demand it and get them all riled up in colleges. You're killing the planet. We've got 12 years to live, and the polar bears are skinny and they're floating away. All that is bullshit. It's all bullshit, but it works really well because it gets you emotional, right? And then so the people demand it, and then the politicians are more than happy to supply it because it's what they wanted to supply all along. And it's got to pay we got to do our fair share. We got to pay our carbon tax to fix the sun, and it's nonsense.
Right.
It's crazy.
100%. All right, so I wanted to just interject. I didn't mean to cut you off. I already did so many times, so I do apologize. But it seems as though, because I'm 27, and also where I'm from, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. I'm from Massachusetts. It seems like those are like blue states. Maybe not Rhode Island. I don't even know that, but Massachusetts is a very liberal state. Everyone I know, even older than me or even a little bit younger than me, kind of is on board with agreeing that global warming, that thing was kind of a hoax. Even people that it's not like a conspiracy theory. So there's that. But then you were talking about the public school thing, with where they kind of want to bring down or they kind of use that to do their own. There's people I know that are younger than me and older than me, slightly, that agree that, public school education kind of is they put a lot of indoctrination into that. But,
I mean, any of my friends who have kids right now, none of them are happy about, for the most part, what's particularly because they don't really see a way out of it. Like you see it all the time where people send their kids to private schools and they still have to deal with this shit. And you would think that would be the kind of way around this, is assuming you had the resources, that you send your kids to some school that you pay a bunch of money to, and then you go, okay, well, they're not, but they're like, no, they still do that.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah.
And the schools, I mean, it's even more diabolical than that, because when you're some rich oligarch that's bought everything that has a price tag on it, at some point you go looking for things that aren't for sale, like this education system. So when it's in the late 1800s, you've got the Carnegies and Rockefellers, and what they're thinking is, well, we need a new pipeline of workers to come in. So why don't we create the schooling system? We'll get them to believe a certain thing. We'll put them in rows of desks. We'll have them come out in and out of the class when the bell rings. We'll mimic the factory almost identically to where they're going to go work for us when they get done with this. And they just put them into an assembly line, called it public schooling, but it was indoctrination, and that's what it was always meant to be. It was always meant to give you, put the guardrails on your education so that you as Carlin says, you're just smart enough to work the machines. So when you see that, and then you flash forward 120 years to what Bill Gates is doing with Common Core, and you go, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a little more technical, but you're breaking these kids.
Yeah, no, but here's where I disagree, Charlie. Well, you're not wrong that was what they were trying to do. Literally, I'm 27. I have younger friends that are like 23. Dude, every single one of them is completely based and conservative. I know that that sounds funny.
Great.
Well, that is almost reactionary, essentially, right? Because it's just when that becomes the uncool thing, generally young people don't want to do the thing that's uncool, and that's just the objectively uncool thing to be like crazy liberal right now.
Well, no, I hear what you're saying. It could be like, they want to be the opposite of what the thing is right now. I disagree. I think it's they're born on the internet, and now they have the memes, they have the internet, they know what's happening in politics. They're smarter. Like people think, oh, the youth is stupid. They've always thought that, but especially now, there's this weird thing. Maybe it's just my opinion, but they think that the millennials and Gen Z are stupid. But especially Gen Z is very intelligent. I think it's because they were born on the internet, but they're very. I don't know one person my age or younger than me, and I'm 27, so I'm barely Gen Z. And then my younger friends, they're all conservative, but they're smart. They went to university.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a show the other day, and I was just talking about something like the election, and this kid who was probably 20. He just, I think I was asking him who you're gonna vote for, and he's just MAGA, and he thought he was saying that to I thought I think he thought I was gonna be what? You can't say that at a comedy show, and I was yeah, I don't know. He thought he was gonna freak me out or something by saying that, but yeah, I see it for sure. I see it in person.
Oh, in person at a show of yours?
Yeah, but and just a New York City comedy club, right? Where you would think, he was saying that to freak everybody out in his mind, and I don't think people really cared that much, to be honest.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I live in a small town, and right outside of Boston. It's probably different, obviously. We grew. We're not in the. We're in the woods, but. I don't know,
people out in the woods see the world much differently than people
big time
in the cities.
Yeah.
And
way different set of concerns.
Yeah, a whole different set of concerns.
Yeah,
not better or worse necessarily, just different. It's just a different style of living.
Yeah, Kyle, I got to take another call, man. But thanks for calling. Take care. Oh, okay. We're gonna take another call here. One moment, please. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
You got Brett.
One moment
here.
Yeah, one moment, please. We're just going to patch you through.
Cool, thank you.
And by we, I mean Zoom. And Brett, you're on with Charlie. Go ahead.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, Danny. Can Danny hear me as well?
Yep. We can all hear you.
Okay. I wrote a few things down. Do I have 2 minutes?
Absolutely. You have even more than 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I don't appreciate your phone line calling me a scrote.
Sorry about
I don't know
that.
is that a 1 ball or a 2 ball thing? I'm not really sure.
Scrote? I think that's a no ball thing, but you'll have to. I'll have to double check on that.
Dare you?
Hey, I appreciate you liking my tweet the other day. You and Ryan, Danny, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Is this
man.
going to be going up to Jew.gay?
This is not going to be going on that. That website's too expensive. Although I got my other. It turns out, after all, I thought I lost my domain, and then I got an email today saying it was renewing. So I go, I guess I never did. I just forgot about it somehow. So, anyways, but no, not going up on Jew.gay. My soon-to-be
I'll pay
domain.
for it.
It's $400 a year. It's not worth it. It's not worth it for a joke.
Speaking about tweets, have anybody in your chat or you guys personally noticed like a lot of anti-Trump tweets going out by like these so-called conservatives? It seems to be really popping up on my timeline.
I haven't seen too much of that. Charlie?
No, I've been getting a lot of people trying to sell me that everything is okay with Joe Biden, though, and that feels very inauthentic for the obvious reasons. But I've been getting quite a bit of that, where it's like, well, actually, he's the healthiest president I've ever seen. So my timeline has been clogged up with propaganda trying to get me to feel a certain way about Biden, but I'm not getting a ton of Trump stuff, at least not right now.
Okay, that kind of leads into my next question is, I think it was yesterday I was on Twitter kind of late at night, and the world is absolutely falling apart with Ukraine and Palestine and Russia and Israel, and now you got talks of China and Taiwan, and obviously our border. I'm not talking about Canadians. I think we like you. I'm not really sure about that yet.
Thank you.
And then with all this going on, to Charlie's point, it was all about Biden eating ice cream. What is going on with? Is that a total psyop, or people just completely?
Well, that's like his brand a bit, though. Is he's
mind?
the ice cream guy, right? He's always talks about how much he loves ice cream. I think he's trying to be this sweet grandfather, who just. Because then that way people aren't like, hey, you need to call for a ceasefire or this and that. He's just like, no, I'm a sweet old man. Fall off my bike sometimes.
That act is so nonsense and so forced and so inauthentic that it.
I can't imagine. I can't even like really picture the person who that is like working on. I guess just if you're a lifelong Democrat and you're like, I would never vote anything other than Democrat, that's my side. Maybe those people.
Yeah. I mean, if he's eating ice cream, he can't talk.
I suppose.
So maybe that's part of it. Like
right.
They can get him in a frame where he's not expected to.
I mean, he's going to have to debate Trump.
Oh,
so that's where the rubber is going to meet the road on this whole thing, right? Because
he's going to have to fake a heart attack.
But that's the thing. But then he loses still. So this is going to culminate into something crazy where we have to literally watch him for an hour.
Oh.
And the only time he comes out is on Seth Meyers, where it's completely scripted and he's eating ice cream. Like you guys said, it's his MO. And it's the fact that there are obviously people that are eating it. No pun intended.
I mean, ice cream's delicious. I don't want to turn this show into some sort of show where we're slandering ice cream.
No, never. I would never do that. But I don't appreciate him muscling in on my territory. I appreciate ice cream too, and I don't like him trying to corner the market on it. A dirty old pants.
It was weird that he was on Seth Meyers of all shows, though. I did find that odd when they go, he's just going to like Seth Meyers is on at 12:30 or something. And as far as late night shows goes, I think it's in dead last.
I haven't heard his name in a few years.
I'm pretty sure that show is in dead last in the ratings of all late night shows.
Well, that would be my guess.
I mean, well, if you're watching it, you're probably questioning your life decisions as well, and maybe you're more susceptible to vote for
If you're watching Seth Meyers, you would never vote for anybody other than the Democrats.
Joe Biden.
Yeah, like you already have, like that's your base at that point.
Yeah.
But it seemed very odd to me.
Did you guys see? Did you see the clip with when he was talking with Taylor Swift with Seth Meyers? Did you guys happen to see that part?
I did not.
Apparently, that's been scrubbed.
What happened?
So, chat, look that up. Look up Biden talking about.
Well, we got an after
Swift
show actually. We got an after
Meyers.
show tonight at 11 o'clock. So we'll pull that up on the after show. Everybody can join.
Yeah, you should. I think you got to really dig for it. Can I say two more things?
Yes,
one
go
more
ahead.
question and then one last comment.
Yep.
Charlie, you mentioned the fatherland earlier with Russia. I think Germany's known as the motherland. I know ships are known as she's. What would you call America going into World War III if you're a commander? Would you say Alphabet Land or Spaghetti-O Land? Or would it be Motherland or Fatherland?
Well, you can't say mother and father anymore. Those words have actually been banned in the House of Representatives 3 years ago. They passed legislation so that you cannot use those terms. And I'm not being funny either. I'm being 100% serious. So we couldn't use motherland or fatherland. Those words are now discriminatory because they describe a family, which is crazy. So it's going to have to be Alphaville or
I think Alphaville's pretty solid.
Alphaville
Chadland.
could work. I mean,
problem is there's already a country called Chad.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah,
TS Land maybe.
Chop. Oh, that's already taken.
No, those are those are taken, and none of those worked out particularly well. So
no, they didn't. That poor bastard that was trying to grow tomatoes on this discarded pizza box with some potting soil on it. He was like, I've been watering it for days, and some like naked vagrant comes and just kicks it over. I was like, oh.
I mean, the crazy thing is about growing tomatoes during that whole thing. Well, that was obviously such a wild time, but you're like, how long do you plan on being here for?
For one tomato,
that you're putting crops down? Like
yes, in the middle of Seattle. Please invade us.
All right, Brett, I gotta let you go. Thanks, man. Okay, let's take another call here. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, this is Eric from California.
Eric from California. One moment, please. And Eric, you are on with Charlie. Go ahead.
Hey, Danny Polishucker.
Yo.
All right. Well, I just wanted to touch on kind of the election stuff that you guys were just talking about with Biden. And what do you think are the odds that he just hides and doesn't end up debating?
He would have to have such a lead. I mean, he'd have to do exactly what Trump just did, right? Which is Trump's like, I don't need to debate anybody. Nobody's coming for me.
Right.
So I'd say low.
What? You think so? He's doing pretty well in the polls, and he always does better when he isn't seen or heard.
Sure, but he'd have to have a 20 point. I mean, again, Hillary Clinton was a 99% chance to win based off of like that 538 thing or whatever. So, I don't know. I mean, really their best chance is Trump is like in jail or some shit.
Right. That
I don't think he could. Yeah. Like if Trump's in jail and he's like, yeah, Trump can't debate me because he's in jail.
Well, that's what I was thinking might be part of their strategies is that they say, look, we don't want to debate this guy that's under all these investigations. We don't want to give him the platform because he's a criminal.
I mean, it's still a presidential debate like race, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope, but you never know. Well,
what do you think about that, Charlie?
I think that they despise and have no respect for the general public at all. So you might be thinking, how dare they not even run him out there? That would be disrespectful to the public. Nobody would believe that. The general public will believe just about anything. And I could envision a scenario if they really wanted to break the spirit of the American people. And of course, we know that they want to. Imagine this. Biden hides from Trump for the rest of the year, doesn't debate, can't put a sentence together, shits his pants with the Pope again or whatever, gets to the election, gets 82 million votes, and they just watch half the country just completely crack. Yeah, in the final humiliation to show, like, we don't care what you guys do.
Yeah.
Go vote, don't vote. I don't care. We're putting our guy back in office, and there's nothing you can do about. Oh, and by the way, you thought he was, you watch it, he's unpopular. We're going to make him get more votes, and then you get to deal with that.
Oh man, that would be.
It would just be soul crushing.
And the thing is, the people on the right aren't the type to protest.
To take it.
Well,
or
not that they won't take it, but I don't like. They just like the right doesn't demonstrate in the fashion that, like, the left knows how to get out there, you know, and organize. Like the left has that ability where they know how to really get out there.
The left is very good at complaining. I will give you that for
Yeah.
sure. They are organized when it comes to airing their grievances. They know how to make that. I think the right, when you just push them a little too far, they just go, get the guns.
Yeah.
Let's just sort this out a different way, which
Right.
of course would be
Yeah.
a really bad idea. Too.
Yeah, that's
So I'm
that
not
is the
advocating
worst
for that.
potential outcome.
Yeah.
By far.
So-
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if Trump specifically, if he does debate Biden or when he debates Biden, if he's gonna get some, you know, if he learned from the last one to really just lay off a bit, because that felt like did him in a bit when he went so hard, and he was just like so obnoxious and so brash, and everybody, like, it was like, you just have to let him talk, just let Biden talk, and he'll lose this thing.
Yeah.
What was your next question?
Yeah, I mean, oh well, yeah. I was just gonna bring up too. In my mind, I think with Israel and Ukraine going on right now, election coming up, it would be the perfect time for China to invade Taiwan amidst all this kind of global turmoil.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I mean, what would be a better time for them? You know.
I mean, people have been saying that for a while now, that especially when the Israel thing started, that, you know, that would be their shot. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know enough about that region specifically to know where they're at in that. I don't know, Charlie. I don't know if you can speak to that.
I think that, well, you're right. It would be a good opportunity in terms of like a time when they're distracted and spread thin, and from like a asymmetrical warfare standpoint, it would be the smartest time to do that if you were China and you were intent on doing that. But I don't know that they are. I mean, I think they're looking more towards not expanding. I mean, I think they want Taiwan. They've been pretty obvious that they've been verbal about that. But I think their investment in the Belt and Road Initiative is a more pressing need for them. They're building out of that over the next 30 years is going to require a ton of their resources. Their involvement in the BRICS nations, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa group that just added 6 more countries in the Middle East. That's giving them a whole new thing. Like, they've got some real important business opportunities to capitalize on. I don't think war really makes sense for them right now. I'm not saying they wouldn't do it, of course, and they certainly could, but I mean, they strike me as being a little bit more practical than that. Maybe they could take over, if they could take it over from a governmental standpoint without a hot war. But a hot war to me would probably draw in some unwanted conflict. It'd probably cause issues with China holding U.S. debt, and what that would do. They'd have to make that calculation as well. If you're China, I would let the United States collapse under the weight of its own ignorance and stupidity and money printing. And
Yeah, there might be a better time to take that shot.
yeah, I
Sure,
remember
they
seeing
definitely play the longer game for sure. Yeah,
I remember
They're doing
seeing
a 500-year plan.
an article for The Onion back when it was funny, and there was a picture of this like early 20s Middle Eastern guy who was leaning back on the couch, and it said, Al-Qaeda determined to do nothing, sit back, wait for America to collapse under its own stupidity. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That actually is probably the best strategy. Do nothing.
Just play the long
Let
game.
these don't as Sun Tzu said, right? Never interrupt your enemy while he's in the process of defeating himself, right? So I mean, while America is printing all this money, but just stay out of the way.
Yeah. Anything else, caller?
Well, just off that thread, the debt. Where do you see us going with that? Are we just gonna inflate away?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the context of controlled demolition, because everybody, this is the number one kind of question mark, because they just keep printing money. It obviously is debasing purchasing power to some degree.
Yeah.
But they're the only country in the world who are in this position where they can do this with, not the effect that anybody else would have it. But everybody's like, well, certainly this has to end at some point. So
yeah,
what do you think that is, or if that happens?
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunately where you get to with these fiat currency cycles is they're only good for about 80 years, maybe 100 years at max. But at some point, if you've got the magic printing press, you do the thing that everybody does with the magic printing press. You keep printing money, and eventually it just becomes worth less. Now, the dollar has a unique position because of the petrodollar arrangement with the OPEC countries and this use of the world's reserve currency and also the SWIFT banking system. But lately, America has been doing the thing that you shouldn't be doing, which is abusing that privilege by kicking Russia off the SWIFT banking system. You showed that you're willing to weaponize it. We've already done that with Iran and North Korea and some other ones. But when you did it with Russia, it sent a message to everyone else like, oh shit, US, if you get on the wrong side of them, they'll kick you off this international wire transfer clearinghouse that you've got to have. That there's really only one. Well, there was one until Russia and China built one as a workaround because they saw what America was doing. So the dollar becomes really important in this. It's kind of boring and it's banking and all that stuff. But like, I think a lot of people are very freaked out, rightly so, because they don't know what's going to happen. You keep printing all this money. You print 80% of all dollars that exist into existence just since COVID. And you don't have to be an economics major to know that that's going to be a huge problem and it's going to have a ripple effect. Now, we've been able to withstand it because of our unique position, but at some point, man, that goes away. And that's what Berwick and I talked about as being something that could definitely be one of the triggers is a bank that has no connection necessarily to the United States empire, something a bank like Deutsche Bank in Germany. That's a bank that's teetering on insolvency. That goes down. It pulls the derivative bets that it has with all these other banks down. They start to come down. They take the small and medium-sized businesses with them, and it's a cascading effect. So sometimes,
I guess the United States solution is they just print more, and then we'll just print more as a Band-Aid for all these problems and kind of kick the can down the road. But eventually,
you got to pay the piper.
Eventually, you would have to think so. I guess what's the main solution is just hard assets.
Hard assets, right? Yeah, gold and silver and productive, land, productive farmland, land with minerals, water rights, things like that.
Anything you would need.
Yeah. You have to sort of think like a paranoid prepper, kind of, like what would be good in the apocalypse? Well, I mean, like what would be good if you couldn't get the things that you needed when you needed them? I mean, kind of got like a little of that during COVID, a little, toilet paper situation here and there. We did not behave particularly well during those times, I mean, imagine when it's the last can of beans, holy shit.
I was actually just going through my camera roll and I found a video of the Trader Joe's in the East Village in Manhattan, like probably exactly, it would have been like about 4 years ago and a week. And I walked in there and it was like empty. Like it looked like a Soviet grocery store. It was like there's like nothing in there. I remember like, Jesus Christ.
You got to fight some guy in the frozen food aisle.
But it is crazy how easily you can panic.
Yeah.
Everybody. Because nobody would ever think that they would be participating in cleaning out a grocery store in New York City. Right? And it was just like that. They were like, yeah,
we're embarrassingly like herd animals, like one of them moves and they all move. And if you're the last person to figure out that, oh, I should have some food, or I should have some gold, or I should just have some cash out of the bank. If you're the last person to figure it out, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Like if you're waiting for CNN to tell you to get ready, it's too late.
Too late.
You got to be proactive on this
All
stuff.
right, thanks, caller. Appreciate it. All right, we can take another call here. Hello. You are on low value. Hey, what's up? You're on low value mail. One moment, please. Well, I patch you through. Who am I speaking with?
This is Dan.
Dan. Hold on. And all right, Dan, you're on with Charlie. Go ahead.
Oh, hey, what's going on, Mr. Robinson?
Hey, Dan.
Hey, what's going on? I just had a quick question for you. I saw something the other day. Going back to last year when the banks like Silicon Valley and Credit Suisse and like the middle range banks were having problems with the interest rates and the T-bills.
Yeah.
And there was a little commotion about that last year. Was there some kind of like Fed policy that kind of I guess encourage people to remove their money from these banks and push them to bigger banks, because with only a certain amount of big banks, the deposit over $250,000 or whatever the dollar amount was would be insured at these banks and not at smaller or middle banks. Was that an actual written policy, or what was the deal with that? Because the way it seemed to me, and the way someone was explaining it seemed like what you guys are talking about, kind of like a controlled demolition.
It felt like a threat to me. It felt like, the big banks were saying, boy, I don't know if I'd have my money in those small to medium sized banks. They're not capitalized. We're too big to fail, but those banks over there, I wouldn't want to be those. Anyway, have a good day.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh shit, they're right. Like if I'm at Bank of America, is Bank of America really going to fail? I mean, maybe Lehman did, but frankly, it should, if you look at how poorly managed these banks are. But the logic is, these big banks are sort of too big to fail. They've shown us in the past that we know they're in bed with the government, whereas the small and medium-sized ones, the big banks wouldn't mind if the small and medium-sized banks went away. For the most part, it's less competition for them, and they can spook people out of those small banks and into their banks if they wanted to. And I would suggest that is what they were doing a little bit. I don't know that it was actual policy, but it was definitely something that scared.
Wink, wink.
Exactly. It was more. It felt like kind of like a threat. Like, boy, it'd be a shame if something happened to those small and medium sized banks.
Yeah, right.
Nice flower shop you got there.
Right.
Okay. So it wasn't an express policy. It was just people understood that they're not going to let.
They know there's a priority.
Okay.
There's an order as to who gets saved first in a scenario like that, and they know.
2008 proved that certain banks, they're not going to let go under, right?
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. There's definitely precedent for that. Right. Okay. So it wasn't actual.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
it wasn't.
They're thinking it though, whether they put it in writing or not. They're going to behave that way too. That it's going to be like, well, we get to pick who we take care of. Well, Chase and Citigroup and all these companies have been donating to their campaigns for a long, long time. Who do you think is going to get taken care of? We know who runs the.
They're all their friends, right? Like,
they're all their
whoever
friends.
the CEO of Bank America is friends with Jerome Powell. Like they're just friends. Like they're
just friends.
They run in the same circles. That's where they get them from, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but isn't well? I think isn't that like kind of like fascism, right?
Yeah. It's organized crime.
The merger.
Yeah, it's because.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, don't they usually define fascism as like the merger of the corporate and the state coming together, right? Isn't that like one of the definitions?
coming together to benefit the state. That's fascism. Corporatism is them coming together to benefit the corporation. And frankly, a case can be made for both because in a lot of these situations, it benefits both of them, both parties. I mean, they lock out all the competition for the banks, and the government gets access to these corporations and gets them to do their bidding where they can't. So like they can't tell Facebook they can't go into Facebook and say, block all these accounts, but they can tell someone at Facebook, you should block all these accounts. Right. Yeah. So that's how they need that influence. And in exchange, then the government provides a racketeering service where they put all these additional regulations that only these really wealthy established businesses can afford and know how to navigate, and it essentially keeps everybody out. So it's like a mutually parasitic relationship where the government and these big businesses kind of need each other, and they've got access to money that the rest of us don't have because the banks help out. And it creates this like class of people that's, you call them whatever you want, like the predator class, if you like, but
and any like criminal transgressions on their part end up just being some monetary fine that just comes out. Right. Like they do something criminal and they go, hey, they will slap your wrist, but it's just money, and it's a minor check. Yeah,
it's almost like they slap their wrist almost just for show. Kind of.
Yeah.
In a tip out too. You know what I mean? I mean, they pay the fine that goes to the state, to the general fund or wherever, and that gets used for some other things. It's kind of like at the end of the night, you tip out your barbacks and then you go home. Yeah. So like they tip out their government and then they go home. So it's just a form of organized crime. It's just that because it's in Washington, D.C. and it's out in the open and in front, and you vote for these people, it maybe feels a little bit different, but Whitney Webb did a great job of this in the first volume of One Nation Under Blackmail, where she sort of draws these parallels between actual mafioso organized crime in New York and what was going on with the local government in New York. And it was like, there was no difference between them. They all hung out together. They went to the same parties. The only difference was that one of them was deemed to be respectable.
Their enforcement arms were different, essentially.
Right, exactly.
But similar, but just different.
Similar but different. Similar styles, but different agencies.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Is there like a phrase or a word that describes what you just described now, or is it like do we have a word for this, or other than racketeering or
corruption,
organized crime, corruption? Like, is there like a political science term for this, or because like you said,
well, I mean, fascism is a good one. You said fascism. Fascism is acceptable, because it definitely does benefit the state. But it doesn't just benefit the state. The corporations don't get involved unless there's something in it for them as well. So because they get a little something out of it, it just depends on, it's gotten so normalized that people just think it's just the way business gets done at the highest levels. And the truth is it's not how it's supposed to be, but that's how it has become. Because we've got a corrupt media that puts the spotlight elsewhere and says, oh, you have to worry about this, but don't worry about these. Don't worry about Nancy Pelosi, and don't worry about
the greatest stock trader of all time.
The greatest stock trader of all time, and Dianne Feinstein with her Chinese spy driver driving her around for 20 years. Don't worry about that. Let's focus on some nonsense that's going on, and
Yeah, I also heard. I don't. I'm assuming it's true. I haven't really looked into it, but they said that guy, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, is also a member on the board of Raytheon. Is that currently? Yeah. Is that true, or he was?
He was. Yeah, and so
he was. Okay.
Yeah, they just swap. They go back and forth, right? Like sometimes people get into the public service because like the pot of gold at the end of that is you get to go be on the board of Raytheon and make $500,000 a year to go to 4 meetings or something like.
Right, exactly. And also if it's not a for-profit military industrial complex like that, it could also be something like a think tank. Like it could be the Trilateral Commission, which you cannot be a member of the Trilateral Commission while you're in the administrative branch of the White House. So guys like Jake Sullivan and Anthony Blinken and Susan Rice, the people that are running the Obama or the Biden administration, they're all trilaterals that just put their membership on ice the day they went into the Biden administration, and the day they leave, they'll go pick up their membership at the trilaterals and circle right back in, because they're only putting it on ice because they legally have to. But they're implementing that whole agenda too, which is open borders. You know, it's open border. That's admittedly what the trilaterals want. And next thing you know, you get open borders. So you don't necessarily have to go to work for Raytheon or Boeing like Nikki Haley. You could
go to
and you can make a lot of money. You could go to these think tanks too, and you get a different form. You don't necessarily get monetary. You get connections, and you get respect, and you get something that doesn't have a price tag on it, which is influence and power and all that stuff that these psychopaths really, really like. And that's why they find themselves in Washington. It gives them all the things that psychopaths dream of, like power and control and unaccountability and access to money and access to kids and access to whatever drugs and whatever they're into, they can get it. And so it attracts this really bad group of people that are predisposed to do horrible shit just in general. And then you give them access to all of it, and you create what we get in Washington, D.C., man. You get a bunch of unhinged maniacs that find themselves in positions where, I've done something I shouldn't have done. And this guy knows about it. And now I got to vote this way in a UN resolution, because if I don't, the pictures come out, And so that's going on too, and that doesn't get talked about. So it's like, you look around, you make these calculations, you watch these politicians do things like vote on things, and you go, maybe he's in favor of that. Man, we don't even know what's going on in that guy's head. I mean, he could be so compromised and so many people that he just is an empty vessel. And I suspect that most of them are. So it's frustrating to watch it, but I think that I think the more that you sort of look for those things, the more obvious it'll be. You'll start to see them everywhere.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, before I get off, I'll take the response off the phone here. But who do you think current has more power, the corporate side or the governmental side right now? If you had to choose one, which one do you think is more powerful?
I feel like they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, really. Don't you? Because I kind of feel the same way.
I mean, if you're a Fortune 500 CEO, like, you can probably call up the president. Like, you probably literally can just call the president on the phone and just get him on the phone. Like, you can, if you're the, Raytheon CEO, like, you can just call up the head of the Department of Defense and, like, just talk to them.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I think they're all buddies. Like, it's not some compartmentalized thing like it should be, maybe.
And
but in a perfect
see
world,
that.
But...
You see that in like the 70s when you had Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld in the Nixon administration, and then they go out during the 80s, they go into like private businesses. Cheney goes and runs Halliburton. Rumsfeld goes and runs GD Searle and goes and runs the Rand Corporation. And then they all get back together in 2000. Now it's their turn to circle back in, come in under the Bush W administration. And so it's like government, big business, government, big business, and they're self-reinforcing. So it kind of works to because like, as an example with Rumsfeld, you got this company that's trying to get aspartame passed, right, as a sweetener. You can't do it. It's giving all the mice cancer, even half of them cancer, and it's really bad. And they're pulling all this bullshit, and they're going in front of the court. And finally, the judge says, "You guys are out. The next time you try this, I'm going to put you guys in handcuffs and take you out of this court." And they're like, "Oh, man, what are we going to do? We can't get this thing passed, but we spent so much money." They go out and they hire Donald Rumsfeld to come in, be their CEO. Aspartame gets passed within 18 months, and he walks away with $11 million. Yeah. So that's where your influence is very valuable to corporations, to yourself, things like that. So it becomes this kind of pattern where people come in, they go out, they come in, they go out. And if you do it well enough and you're skilled, you're Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, I guess. All right, thanks, caller. All right, let's take another call here. I think I know who this is. Slav. How's it going? The only guy who calls from an anonymous number. Interesting. All right, you're on with Charlie. Go ahead, Slav.
Charlie, how much do you know about Bolshevism?
Not enough, to be honest with you. I think that there's a whole lot. I think I have a little bit of a hole in my understanding of all of this because I don't know Bolshevism inside and out. I know enough about it to know that it really sort of kickstarted some horrible shit in the Soviet Union that lasted for a very long time. But I see some similarities in it, in like the ideology and the messaging, the keep it simple, stupid, like the way the Bolsheviks advertised to the uneducated farmers. It was like solidarity, strength, like the fist and everything. Like the message got really dumbed down. And I feel like I'm starting to see some of the Bolshevik messaging coming on now, where it's just real dumbed down and real. So I know a little bit about it, but
tell us, Slav.
Because I am Russian, I learned about my motherland's history since I was in middle school and shit. So I definitely learned I got way into the weeds of the Russian Revolution and the 1920s and 30s and all the communist regime. It's just you kind of hit the nail on the head saying that you do notice a lot of similarities of what is happening now. Like people say, "Oh, we're in the Weimar Republic," but they're referring to economic conditions.
Yeah, that's mostly just money printing thing.
And then with the Bolshevism, you kind of see it in labeling identity of people, and also in the criminal justice system.
Yes.
For instance, one of the most famous things is in 1926 they have a criminal code where you're legally allowed to draw your knife when your attacker is already has you on the ground and is about to stab you from above.
Sounds like New York City, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there is no in 1926 there was no criminal punishment for raising your knife at somebody to rob them. There was only a criminal punishment if you pulled your own knife to defend yourself way too early.
You feel that sort of Bolshevism coming through in the criminal enforcement, like you said,
New York City, I've talked about this before, but New York City, there is some guy who's trying to get rid of it, but there is a thing here called the duty to retreat, where if someone pulls a knife on you, if I walk out of my studio, I'm right by Madison Square Garden, and someone pulls a knife on me, legally I have to run away. If I go to attack him and disarm him and maybe stab him with his knife, they're going to charge me because I could have run away, and I didn't. And that's a law that's codified. I have to run away.
Oh, fuck that. I can't comprehend that shit.
It's not up to you to comprehend. It's just the law. They'll put you in a fucking box.
You can comprehend
it.
You can comprehend it if you think about it differently. If you think that it's not trying to make sense, it's trying to demoralize you. It's trying to make you feel as though you're a criminal for defending yourself, defending your own right to exist, that they've flipped that around on you. If they can get you to feel that you are a criminal for defending yourself, then you're broken. And if you're broken, they can control you easier. So part of this is also trying to just break your spirit to the point where you throw your hands up and go, well, we've always allowed people to steal anything under $950 in San Francisco. Of course. Yes, I'll put a sticker on my window that says the trunk, or I'll leave the trunk open in San Francisco and say, just don't break my windows. There's nothing in the car. Take a dump in the back seat if you must, but don't break my windows anymore. I'm tired of it. This is when you get to a city like that, when you get the city to normalize that, what's the difference between that and Bolshevism? I mean, you're talking about a broken society that's just barely functioning at that point, where you're either a millionaire or you shit on the sidewalk. Like there's no in between. That is a weird place to be.
And knowing the history of like Bolshevism and Leninism and Stalinism is the first of the most ardent supporters of all of communism, especially during the Russian Revolution. They were the first ones to get thrown up against the wall and have their brains splattered. And then everyone that you would see right now supporting it, like young kids from like Socialist Democrats of America, or bullshit that is, they will be the first ones to get thrown. And then also the Communist Party favored criminals, violent criminals. I mean, Stalin, that's not even his real name. His name is Julius Beauty because he's some sort of dirty Georgian from those mountains. He was only hired because he was a henchman and a very successful and violent robber. This is what
they don't understand. That's what Antifa can never understand, is that they're useful early on when the plan is to destabilize the current administration. But the minute the current administration has been changed and the new group comes in, then those people, those antagonizers like Antifa, they become a liability instead of an asset. So like Yuri Bezmenov said, they're the first to be put up against the wall, and they're the last to see it coming because they think that they're really useful, but they're actually only useful for a small period of time. And then they undermine the new establishment. So the establishment realizes they have to get rid of them first. So that's what the left, the hardcore loony left, the cultural Marxists, the Antifa types, that's what they can't understand because they've never understood history, is that the brown shirts are grown up, by Hitler to be the ones that cause the chaos, while the SS is being brought up quietly as a parallel organization. And when the signal is given, the SS slaughters the brown shirts, and that's the end of them.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. And then you also bring up, y'all brought up Yuri Bezmenov, but I think Yuri Bezmenov, it's a little too amateur and a little contemporary for my taste. I mean, you're familiar with Alexander Solzhenitsyn, right?
I am.
The guy who wrote, and he literally said, and he said, like, they control us because we know that they're corrupt and they control us and they do whatever they want, and they know that we know that about them, and we know that they know, and it's like a cycle of we understand who's really in charge due to force. And the reason I did call him, my first thing was you said that like the whole topic of like the decline of the American empire and not just the empire, but like what America means to me, like as an immigrant, like being independent and liberty and all that. Don't you think it all sort of began with the War of Northern Aggression?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know when it began. I don't know. I mean,
you think it began with like a literal like an individual inflection point? Usually, this stuff I feel is somewhat gradual. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say it. I don't know. Maybe there's a case to be made for that. I don't.
Well, I mean, what is it? Abraham Lincoln is a war criminal. He literally declared, like, he refused to recognize the, self-claimed status of independence of people, and then said that he doesn't recognize their own sovereignty, declared them his own citizens, and then went out and killed them. Only because, like, 2% of people of the South in the Confederacy owned slaves.
I mean, I don't know if that's what got us here to where we are today, but that might be a.
We've lost our. There's no doubt that we've lost our way, and that there were some decisions that had been made along the way that really facilitated the destruction of America. I pointed to NAFTA as one of them. That was one of those things that, like, even when it was getting talked about. Remember Ross Perot saying that, talking about the sucking sound that you were going to hear of all the jobs getting sucked out of America. It wasn't like theory. It was a fact. It was, if you do this, it's going to gut America. And then Bill Clinton did it, with a big smile on his face, and everyone applauded and said, "What a great guy you were." And the people that understood it were like, "What are you doing? Like, this is what you do if you're trying to destroy America. Is that what you're trying to do? Are you trying to destroy America? Because if you are, this is a pretty good way to do it." So I think a lot of times we make these assumptions as well about like what the role of government is. Like, oh, government's broken. Well, yeah, but it's kind of set up to be broken. It's kind of designed in a way that you can't even really expect it to be anything but broken.
Depends who you ask.
Are you familiar with
how we want it to, how they
Depends,
wanted it to
depends
work.
who you ask. They might say it works perfectly fine.
Right.
Are you familiar with the term, the purpose of the system is what it does?
No.
But I think I can follow it. I mean,
so you create something and all the effects is what you said, like you just declare. Like that's what literally America has become, in my opinion, that the purpose of the system is what it does. And it has nothing to do with what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I think we make some assumptions about what America's role is, what it's supposed to do. And we're also sold this like image of America, like America's the defender, America is this, the FBI is the Federal Bureau of Investigations. They defend you, and they come in and then you look at it and you go, well, I think that the FBI is the largest domestic terrorist organization operating inside America. I think there's plenty of evidence to support that.
The FBI on Danny's show.
Yeah, I had a former FBI agent on the show like maybe a month ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
and he encouraged me to do not good things.
But the FBI agent did, so he probably
former FBI
agent. Former, yeah. Well, I mean, it's so again, some of these things we make the assumption. You go, oh, the pharmaceutical industry is there to make me healthy, and you go, really? Because they're all convicted felons. What makes you think that and by the way, there's no evidence that they make you healthy at all. In fact, they don't make money when you're healthy. They make money when you're sort of in the middle, when you're sick. And so again, like some of these institutions that we have, we just sort of go, oh, they're there for our own benefit. Oh, the IRS is there to raise money to pay for who would build the roads if we didn't have the and you're like, what?
Yeah,
this is dumb bullshit. This is stupid stuff they teach you in school. This isn't true. None of this stuff is true. So, the system works the way the system is supposed to work. But the problem is the system is set up and designed to benefit the people that have influence within it, the people at the very top, and it works well for them. That's why they get rich during pandemics, and that's why everyone else gets stressed out and.
Yeah, it's what RFK denies. The Zogs. I mean, I'll just hang up and that video of the airman crucifying himself in front of the Israeli embassy, bro. I ain't taking that shit seriously. I'm laughing at that shit.
I mean, what are you supposed to do? Although if it gets a lot of people lighting themselves on fire, then.
Bro, I don't believe it. When I saw that, the first word that came in my head was contrived. Like, this seems really contrived.
Seems just like a mentally ill guy. I don't know if this is I don't know, too simplistic.
It is a metal ass, bro. That should be like that's like the album cover on Pink Floyd.
Yeah, better that than getting than taking it out on a bunch of innocent people. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree.
He made his point. It's not.
I mean, I read actually just before we came on here that he was telling his friends that I guess he was like was I don't know whatever role he did, but he had heard or had seen proof that there were actually U.S. soldiers like in the tunnels in Gaza.
Oh, really?
Which is there's zero. I mean, the United States would deny that. So the question is he nuts or did he just drop this giant bombshell?
It doesn't make sense. It's like, imagine being a white man in America. You're gonna burn your life away over a bunch of hook noses and magic carpet pilots. Like,
But,
come
but
on.
white
like,
men in America are one of the largest
we're the best.
suicide.
You know what?
Yeah,
Actually,
we're just the
you
best.
know what's funny? I was trying to write a sketch about this, and then I was on the suicide hotline website or whatever. I didn't even realize the extent of it. White men can make up 70% of all suicides. 70 in America. Crazy.
Yeah.
I thought it was high. I didn't realize it's that high. All right, Slav. Thanks, dude. Slav,
a lot
everybody.
of pressure on us.
Yeah,
donkeys
I guess.
these
Yeah,
days.
yeah. So I want to talk about this really quickly. We got to get out of here soon, and thank you again for coming on. The Anarchy Convention.
Yes.
So
Anarchapulco.
Anarchapulco, because I actually watched that documentary randomly, like probably a
did
year
you?
ago.
The
I watched the
HBO
whole
one?
there's
Or-
this documentary.
There's one on Vice, and there was one that was a 6-part series on
the
HBO.
6-part on HBO.
Yeah.
And it's about, so for people who don't know, it's essentially like all these like crypto people who go to this. It's in Acapulco, and then there was like people who were getting killed, but it was like I think around. So you went to it recently? Was it the first time you went?
No. So my co-author on Controlled Demolition is Jeff Berwick, and he's been putting this on Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico for 10 years. It's the largest anarchist convention in the world, and it's a 5-day event, and each day is a little bit different. One day is crypto.
Okay, yeah, that's the main guy from it. Oh, okay, that's the guy who
one
wrote the book
day
with
is
you.
anarchism. One day is like Vitalidad, health and wellness. One day's prepper stuff, getting yourself second residency, getting learning how to grow a garden, doing all that stuff. They have shamanic work there, workshops. You can go do ayahuasca. You can go smoke bufo. You can do all kinds of crazy shit there. And I had been a speaker there on 3 different occasions over the last couple of years. And this year they asked if I wanted to host and MC it. So I did that. That was the 11th. We were the day after the Super Bowl, starting that week, and it was amazing. It's always a great time, but to get to all these interesting thinkers, really fascinating people.
What's the attendance like there?
It's about 600 people in person and another couple thousand watching online, and it's not. So to sort of like. The general disclaimer is that anarchy doesn't mean no rules. It means no rulers. And considering the batch of rulers that we've got right now, I mean, we're certainly interested in a change.
Easy idea to sell, I guess.
Yeah, pretty easy. But if you come to it and you think that you're going to go to a Molotov cocktail throwing contest or a tire burning demonstration or something like that, you'll be pretty disappointed. And what winds up happening is that they take buses out from the hotel to the nature preserve and let baby sea turtles out at night so that they don't get eaten by birds and stuff like that. I mean, it's really kind of, it's more, I mean, there's sort of a hippie component to it.
Yeah,
really
for sure.
sort of like, especially this year, there was a real pivot towards service because Acapulco got hit by a massive Category 5 hurricane in October. And the community was devastated. The Anarchapulco community, a lot of them lived down there, did a great job of getting out and coordinating supplies. Berwick raised over $400,000 in like 2 weeks to get supplies that were being brought in from, they were sending trucks out 4 hours out to neighboring cities and picking up supplies and bringing them back and then distributing them on motorcycles. So they did a lot of work for the city to help get the city up and running. And so it went off this year and it was fantastic. It was just a real amazing group of people. You get to hear from all the COVID doctors and the people that were very vocal about that. All the crypto guys are there. I met an actual crypto billionaire, which was kind of cool.
Wow.
And then everyone at night, Max Egan, who does a great show called The Crow House. Max lives down there in Acapulco now after escaping Australia, and he bought a bar that's right down the street in Bonfil Beach. And every night people were at Max's bar drinking till 4:00 in the morning and playing music and talking about all kinds of interesting conspiring with our tinfoil hats.
I imagine it's a way more fun time when the price of Bitcoin's high. Like I imagine there must be some correlation between how the attendance and how much fun everybody's having.
I've been there when it's 4,000. I've been there when it's 20,000. After hitting 69,000, it wasn't as much fun. This year it hit 50,000 while I was on the stage. In fact, I announced it. The place went. Listen, I mean, these are people that are in early on a lot of things. They're building, they're looking at the system and saying, we're not even going to bother trying to fix the education system. Instead, we'll build something outside of it, a homeschooling program that's scalable, or an unschooling program where we can kind of deprogram you. Or they had camps going on. They had like a man camp that this guy from New Hampshire was teaching kids how to do blacksmithing. I mean, crazy stuff like that. Yeah, it was really interesting. And they have kid camps that were going on every day. And the shaman went and talked to him one day. Berwick talked to him another day. Marjorie Wildcraft from the Grow Network went and showed him how get them started learning how to grow food. So everyone kind of comes in and gives these kids an education. It's a real positive, uplifting experience with a lot of smart people, international, a lot of Canadians, a lot of people from like Denmark and just the UK and Australia. Everyone wants to get out of Australia. So it's and a lot of expats that live in Mexico now. So I love it. It's a great time. It's a very the HBO documentary series was pretty rough but honest. I mean, there were some problems in the community for sure, and there were some people that were doing things
I'm sure that's
that
like
you don't
anything,
do in Mexico, man. You don't sell drugs when the cartel tells you not to sell drugs. You just don't do that.
Yeah. That seems to be essentially the main takeaway. Like at the end of you go, that's not that crazy, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, not to say that anybody deserved what happened.
No, absolutely,
of course, not. But again, there's some certain things where you just go, oof, like, I don't know if that would have been the smartest thing to do just in general. But I'll tell you that community has really kind of come together this last year. I think was probably the best one. The production team is really solid. They've been together for 4 years now. The event always goes off without a hitch. It's amazing. So I encourage people. I mean, listen, the worst thing you're in Mexico.
You're in Acapulco, and
come on, it's a fun place to go, but you'll also get a nice education. You'll be around a lot of like-minded people, especially if you're feeling kind of alone, kind of isolated, like you don't have this interaction. Maybe your family or friends think you're a little bit crazy. You go to a place like this and you go, okay, all right, I'm not the only one that feels this way. So it's always a positive thing. So I encourage people to go check it out.
Cool. All right. On that note, we're going to wrap this up. Where can people find you?
Macroagressions.io is the new website. If you go there, you'll find information about the books. You'll find information about the podcast. I do another show called The Union of the Unwanted with Sam Tripoli. We do that twice a month. Good group roundtable. You can find information about that. And follow me on Twitter at Macroagressions. Thanks for having me on, Danny.
Very nice. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. Let's do this again. And everybody, we're going to do an after show in about 10 to 15 minutes. So go hop over to the link. I will drop it in the chat right now. Otherwise, new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night at 10:30 p.m. And, actually, I've got to check this poll. All right, 81% said yes. So there's a very good chance that we're going to be doing the show on Monday nights and The Bathhouse on Tuesday nights going forward, which works so much better for my life. All right, hold on. Let me just drop this in the chat, and then we're going to wrap. What did I do here? All right, I just lost it. All right. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Like I said, need a producer, patreon.com/low-value-mail. Help me do that. It would really help a lot. All right. Thank you, Charlie. Good night, everyone. I'll see some of you soon over on the after show. Peace. My shit heroic. Empathic abilities, my face be also stoic. Bleep blow up, nigga. That just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can feel this hit if you up or if you hurt. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5 got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenally. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comic through. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah, they was
was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah. And they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now we pulling up fresh on some flight shit. Ha. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't want to turn on my light switch. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't want to turn on my light switch. Yeah. Then they tried to down me up some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't want to turn on my light switch.